Hey there, my friends. This is Dave Wood. I'm actually talking to you right now in San Jose, Costa Rica. My wife and I are headed out Thursday. We're here for a couple days, and then we're headed out to this hot springs in Costa Rica. And we're going to be hanging out at the hot springs for a few days, just kind of chilling, relaxing. My wife's birthday's coming up. Thanksgiving's coming up on Thursday, so we're just going to kind of take a little mini vacation here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make a video telling you how to become a more magical person. Last night we did a call at Empower Network, our Monday night Empower Hour call, where I covered the 5 keys to selling magically. And I don't know if you've ever had a magical selling experience before. You've probably had a magical buying experience, but maybe not magical selling experience. A magical selling experience is being able to put together content or information or a sales video where everything in the world around you just disappears for a second, and you find yourself kind of in a flow, in a zone, and the results that you produce aren't just ordinary, they're extraordinary, okay? And what I want to talk about in this video is I want to talk specifically about one of the steps that I outlined at the call. If you're in Empower Network, you can actually log in. You can listen to the replay of that call. I actually think just listening to that call is worth the price of paying for an Empower Network membership. You can actually log in now. You can listen to it. It's playing at the Audio of the Week. It's also in the Inner Circle membership. And one of the things that I covered in that video was I talked about the importance of paying attention to magical things that happen to you in your life. Now, if you don't believe in magic, it's okay. You could pay attention to how the Spirit is guiding you in your life, or you could pay attention to things that are extraordinary because the coincidences that have to occur for them to happen to you there's so many of them that it's almost like it can't happen unless you're just in the right place at the right time and you're guided by an unseen hand. It doesn't matter what you believe or your background. Paying attention to magical things that happen to you is super important if you want to live an amazing, incredible life. You know, a lot of people, they meet me and they say, gosh, Dave, you are the luckiest damn person I've ever met in my life. You know, if I go gambling, I win money almost all the time. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I actually do. Not all the time, but most of the time, you know, if I go and I just gamble for a few minutes, I'll win money. I make an extraordinary amount of money. My wife's gorgeous. Live in an amazing house. I get people calling me all the time with random opportunities to do cool stuff. Make a tremendous amount of money doing relatively small amount of work if you compare what I do compared to probably what you do. Everything that I do creates a kind of a mystical type of result that just is a little bit wacko. I generate over 5,000 leads a day. I've been consistently making more money almost every single month now for the last 3 years, and I came from a van. I mean, I lived in a van 3 years ago. It wasn't always like this. And so sometimes people say, Dave, it's like there's this power in your life that you just accomplish these amazing things. How do you do that? Well, it comes from a principle, and I'm going to talk about this, and this goes along to paying attention to magical stories, paying attention to extraordinary coincidences, paying attention to really cool stuff that happens to you, and just focusing your energy onto it. I learned something a long time ago where whatever you focus on in your life tends to happen more. Okay, now I'm not talking about any mystical powers here. I'm not talking about the universe rearranging. I'm not talking about you having telekinesis and physically affecting the world around you, although who knows, you may. What I'm talking about is when you pay attention to something, when you focus on something that's happening to you, it tends to happen more often, okay? When you focus on something that happens to you, it tends to happen more often. When you focus on something that happens to you, it tends to happen more often than when you don't focus on it. What do I mean? Well, I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you've bought a car, okay? And you swore that you were the only person in town that had that car. But then you bought the car, and then all of a sudden it seemed like you see them everywhere, right? Or I don't know if you've ever not known a word exists before. This has happened to me all the time through my life because I kind of delete a lot of things in my brain, right? I don't pay attention to everything, right? It's one of the reasons why sometimes I'll forget to shave for days, and sometimes I'll forget to match my... I forget a lot of stuff. Okay? I delete a lot of stuff in my life. So sometimes I'll learn a word and I'll be like, God, I've never heard that before. That's a fascinating word. Sometimes my wife says a word and I say, that's not a word, come on. And then she defines it for me and shows it to me in the dictionary because she reads a lot, and I say, holy crap, you're right, it's a word I didn't know that exists. It happens to me all the time. But then the next week, I'll see it in the newspaper. I'll see it in a book. I'll hear people saying the word and repeating the word. I'll start using the word, and the more I hear it, the more I see it, right? Why does that happen? How come the things that you pay attention to tend to recur more often in your life? They tend to recur because of something in your mind called the reticular activating system, okay? And there's a piece of your brain, it's called the RAS, or Reticular Activating System. There's a part of your brain that sorts the information coming in through the 5 sentences and determines what you pay attention to. Okay? So in other words, at any moment in time, right now as you're watching this video, you're watching the video, you're hearing the sounds that I'm speaking. You're also hearing the traffic in the background. Maybe the trees are blowing back there. You're seeing the hand and the skin tone of my hand and the color of my shirt, and you're feeling something at the bottom of your feet, and your heart's beating and you're breathing, right? There's millions of things going on right now in your life that you're not paying attention to. There's millions of them, right? You're not paying attention to most of what's going on in your life. And actually the numbers work something like this. You consciously do not pay attention to there's 1,000,000 times more things that are going on in your immediate environment that are coming in through your senses that you're not paying attention to. So what you're paying attention to in your life is a tiny, 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 tiny part of your life. You're ignoring most of your life. Most of the things that go on around you, you have no conscious awareness of them, and to be truthful, if you did have conscious awareness of them, you'd go crazy, okay? You cannot pay attention to everything going around you and control all of it. There's all kinds of things that your brain will delete, they'll distort, they'll generalize, and they'll sort into convenient little categories so you can focus on the few things that matter to you. As a result of that, whatever you focus on tends to be sorted for more in your environment by your reticular activating system. So if you pay attention to the color red, for example, if I mention the color red 500 times in a sentence, you'll walk out of this video and you'll notice the color red around you is a little bit brighter. In fact, I'm linking to a blog post right below this video where I actually demonstrate that principle, and you cannot read that blog post without red becoming a little bit more brighter. Just by the act of reading that blog post, I'm telling you, if you question what I'm saying, here's what I want you to do. I challenge you right now to pause the video, open that, it'll open in a new window, read that blog post, and try to read that blog post without the color red becoming slightly more bright around you in your environment. How am I doing that? Well, I don't have mystical powers. I'm doing it because I'm getting you to focus on the color red. And as you focus on the color red, now what you're going to notice is you'll start to notice that there's maybe some red in the floor. Maybe there's some red in your hand. Maybe there's a red car that's driving by, right? Maybe you notice that red is kind of in everything, right? It's because your brain sorts what it focuses to. So, if you have a choice of what to focus on in your life, what should you focus on? Awful stuff that happens to you all the time, right? Which, hey, awful stuff happens to some people. It seems to never happen to me, but awful stuff happens to people a lot, right? It seems like it. I mean, you watch the news in the morning, you swear to God the whole world's awful, right? You watch the news in the morning and fill your mind with negative, your mind will sort for negative all day. Some of the most negative people I know in my life are people that flip on the TV at 5 in the morning, and before they go to bed, they watch the news. They watch it when they wake up, and they watch it when they go to bed, and their mind is filled with every wrong thing that's happened in the world, and therefore their brain, their reticular activating system, automatically starts sorting through their world, looking for things that are wrong in their life. They look for things to be wrong. They look for bad things in the environment. They look for reasons to be depressed. They look for negative experiences and for reasons why their business isn't going to work for them, for reasons why they're not going to get the results that they want, right? Well, simultaneously, somebody right next to them with less skill than them, with less intelligence than them, with a different focus than them, is in the same environment as them and having a totally positive experience of the world, a totally positive experience with their results, a totally positive experience with their marketing, a total positive experience with their sales. Why? Because they are focused on magic. And everybody's had magical things happen to them. Everybody's had magical things. So what I want you to do, I'm going to walk you through a little exercise of focusing in on a memory where something magic happened to you. Maybe you were in the right place at the right time and you made a decision that changed your life and it altered the whole course of your life. I don't know if you've ever had it. Actually, I do know you've had at least one experience like that in your life. Everybody who exists has had some kind of magical experience. Even the most skeptical people in the world of this stuff that I'm saying right now, which the only reason they're skeptical is because they're uneducated, to tell you the truth, right? The most skeptical people in the world of this stuff have had magical stuff happen to them before, and they might write it off as coincidence, and it's okay if you write it off as coincidence, you're fine to do that, but I would prefer to focus in on the memory and recreate more magic and have my mind sorting for luck and for magic all the time in my life, because what I find is when I focus on stuff that happens to me that's amazing, and I say, God, I'm lucky, and something happens to me, and I sponsor a leader in my business, and my income increases again by $10,000 a month, I say, God, I sponsor leaders all the time. It's unbelievable. I'd rather remember all the leaders I sponsored who made me $10,000 a month than I would to remember all the people that I sponsored who quit, right? A lot of people say, God, so many people quit. Well, if you focus on that, you're going to sponsor a lot of quitters. Whereas if you focus on, God, I just sponsored another leader into my business. I just sponsored, Chris Record, who's making me another $10,000 a month. I sponsored Tony Rush, who's making me $10,000 a month. I sponsored Tracy Walker, who's making us, $10,000 or $20,000 a month. Guys, if you focus on the people, the experiences, the magic, your mind will automatically sort for and begin to recreate more magic. It's very important to do. But there's also another reason for doing it. I'm going to actually teach you in this video, and I'm going to demonstrate it on how to use amazing things that happen to you that have no meaning to most people, and how to create meaning from magical things that happen to you that are happening to you now that you're probably not paying attention to, and how to use those experiences to, number one, focus on things that are going to get you better results in your life by your reticular activating system. Number two, are going to help you construct sales messages and calls to action. And number three, by the act of doing that, you're going to become a more charismatic, more sexy, more powerful, more persuasive person. And you might even notice as I'm speaking, maybe your nipples get a little bit hard. I just had to say something weird in there, you know what I'm saying? All right, so what's a magical experience? Well, here's how I'm going to define it, and these are some things I want you to do. I actually want you to get a notebook out, okay, after I make this video, and I want you to jot down maybe 5 times in your life where you've had amazing, magical things happen to you. I actually want you to focus in on one of the amazing, magical things that happened to you. I want you to make a video about it, like this video that I'm making now. I want you to post that video somewhere on YouTube, and maybe you could even link it back to your Empower Network blog. And of course, if you ain't in Empower Network, I want you to listen to the call as part of the assignment, and that call is actually in the members area, so you're going to need to join just to listen to that call to complete the assignment, all right? But what I want you to do, again, jot down 5 things that happened to you where you're in the right place at the right time, you made a decision that changed your life. You're in the right place at the right time against all odds, and something amazing that happened to you that changed the course of your life. Something negative happened to you that you thought was negative, but all these things lined up in the universe to change that negative into a positive at the last possible second of your life. When's something like that to happen to you? Okay, let me give you some examples of things that have happened to me, and then I'm going to show you how to use these stories to give calls to actions in your videos in a way that traps people in, that traps people's attention in, that makes it so people's attention is entirely focused on the words that are coming out of your mouth in a way that makes you a more charismatic, sexy, automatically more badass person. You ready for it? Okay, what are some examples of things that have happened to me? Let me give you a few examples of things that happened to me. Here's an assignment for you. Watch the sales video, okay? And I want you to count how many times in that sales video I use amazing, ridiculous stories that happened to me in the sales video, okay? At the very end of the sales video, I use a story in particular about the time that I met my wife and the total ludicrous, ridiculous story that's really behind that. Because a lot of you guys have spouses, a lot of you guys have amazing relationships in your life. And if you really think about it for a second, if you think back, for example, to meeting your wife, or meeting your husband, or meeting a person that you love, or your gay partner, or getting involved in the church that you're in, or you think back to a time when you got the job that you have, or you made a decision to be in the career that you're in, if you actually think back to the amount and number of completely seemingly random circumstances that had to be in place for you to have that experience, it will actually blow your mind if you actually focus and pay attention, if you focus and pay attention, if you focus and pay attention to that experience, and you try to list all the random things, you will not be able to list the random things that needed to happen in order for that experience to occur. For example, the story I tell of my wife, of meeting my wife, and you got to watch the video to hear the full story. I don't want to repeat it here. So you can watch the sales video, of course, by clicking on one of the banners. You can click on the banners, it'll open up a capture page, and you can watch that video and watch it just for that experience at the very end where I tell the story of how I met my wife. It's a ridiculous story. But here's the thing that's even more ridiculous about that story, and you need to watch the video to get the full background on this. I was living in Utah for 2 months when I met my wife. I didn't like Utah and I wanted to move. I was in a job that I hated, okay? Because I was in a job that I hated, I was at lunch and I wasn't going back to work because I was sitting there fuming mad because my life sucked and I was at this job that I hated. So I was at a place that I don't normally go to in a city that I've only lived at for a few months in my life, okay? Late coming back from a lunch break in a restaurant at a random, totally random place, when the only time I ever have met my wife, which is one time when I met her, right? I met my wife once. The only time I ever saw her was at that particular moment. Now, I almost didn't talk to her because I'm not like one of these like super player dudes that you see that walk around. I have a lot of girls who want me and stuff because I'm rich and famous, but I turn them all down because I'm married. I got an amazing, gorgeous, hot wife. So sorry, ladies. You know what I mean? There's all sorts of single badasses in Empower Network. Go after them, right? But the thing is that you know, I have this amazing, gorgeous, incredible woman who, if you meet her, she's one of the only people in the world weird enough to really intellectually get along with me all the time, right? And it happened in this completely random circumstances where one day I was living in Hawaii and I randomly decided to move back to Utah. I walked into a job and I said, I need a job, what do you got? And they said, we need salespeople. I said, well, one thing I could do is sell. I said, can I work here? And they said, well, you know, let me actually get you an application. I filled out an application. They hired me, and I hated the job. I hated it so bad I wanted to move back to Alaska to live with my parents, and I was only there for 2 months. While I was there, I had an experience. I mean, think about the random things. My wife was in that restaurant that day with a guy that was taking her out, who also happened to not be her boyfriend. Just at the moment when I was about to leave, she walked in. I mean, how many thousands of little occurrences had to happen for her to be there at that exact moment, at that exact time? Now, the scientist is going to say, well, Dave, that's random. And, you know, you can think like that. And you might be right, maybe it is. The Christian person is going to say, well, God is directing your life, right? The Jonathan Budds of the world are going to say, the universe positioned you in a particular place in a particular period of time. Another person is going to say, God, you're lucky. You know, it doesn't really matter why it happened. The fact is that I feel like I'm lucky. I feel like there's an unseen hand guiding everything that I do in my life. I feel like whenever I want something, it happens. I feel like things happen to me that are literally miraculous to help me get what I want. Let me make sure this video is still filming. Okay, yeah, it's still filming. I feel like miracles are around me all the time. I feel like my entire life is magical. That's what I feel like all the time. That's what I feel like in that experience. I felt like some magic started in my life. Now, my life wasn't magical all the time, right? But think about the random things that had to happen. Now, I almost didn't talk to her. What if I had not made a decision to talk to her? Think about that for a second. I wouldn't have had the last 5 years. I wouldn't have had this incredible relationship. I wouldn't have had my best friend in the world, right? I wouldn't have this zany, cool girl. I mean, I would have probably never met her again in my life. I wouldn't have regretted it. My life would just be different. That moment, there was a single moment where I made a decision that changed the entire course of my life. A single moment. Have you ever had a time in your life where you've made a decision that's changed your life? Maybe now is time to make one of those decisions. Maybe as you're watching this video right now and as you're remembering this, it's time for you to make a decision to become more magical in your life, and that's going to start by taking action and deciding to get in with us, right? Empower Network is a magical place to be. I'm going to talk more about that in a second. So as you see, I just took an example of a time that's true in my life where I had a magical random experience. I slightly told the story. I told a story of imagine the regret I'd have if that didn't happen, and then I used that story directly afterwards to tell you, what if I didn't take action? What if you don't take action right now? There's two things that can happen from this video as an example. I'm serious, by the way. What if Lawrence Tam didn't come to my house in Costa Rica a little over a year ago? Did you know that Lawrence Tam at the last minute decided on a whim to come to that event in Costa Rica that changed his life? He had never made more than $12,000 a month online. He didn't believe it was possible to make over $10,000 a month online consistently. He was frustrated. His wife was frustrated. He was about to quit. 3 months later, I launched Empower Network. From what he learned at that conference, from me talking to him, and from him having that little breakthrough in his life, 3 months later, right, he had his first $50,000, it wasn't a month, it was like 6 weeks. He had his $50,000 in a 6-week period of time. What if he hadn't decided to go? What if he hadn't decided to get an Empower Network? What if he had written it off? What if he had said, I'm not going to get in? Rob 4, right? I met Rob 4 randomly. Rob 4 gets involved in Empower Network, but he was nervous because of some things that were going on, so he emails me, he says, Dave, don't put my order through, we were taking paper applications, right? He almost decided to not get in. So I got this email from Rob, and I was looking at it, I actually started laughing, because here's what I knew. I knew that a lot of the people on Rob's list were on my list, and I knew they were going to join Empower Network, and I knew if they didn't join Rob, they were going to join with me, right? So I emailed him back, and I said that. And I said, Rob, look, you don't have to join, buddy. I could tear this up right now, but I'm going to tell you something. Your list is on my list. They're going to see the offer from me and 5,000 other people. If they don't join with you, they're going to join with me from our comp plan for you and for the size of your list and for how many of them are on my list. It's actually okay if you don't join, because they're all going to join with me, and them joining with me versus you is probably going to make me an extra, $250,000 this next year, and it's probably going to make you lose $250,000. So if you don't want the $250,000, you want to give it to me, don't join, right? So he emailed me back, he said, damn it, Dave, put the application through, started emailing. Well, funny enough, because he made a decision. Now, last minute, he was not going to do it. He was nervous about what was going on. Well, last year at the last event, I think he had made $207,000, right? So it was about a year, not quite to $250,000, but then you take that month. Now, here's the interesting thing. You take the rest of that month. I think Rob Ford made, $40,000 last month. Don't quote me. It's not an income claim. I'm just doing this from my memory, okay? We disclose average earnings everywhere on our website. You click on the income disclosure link anywhere on EmpowerNetwork.com. He made a decision last minute that made him an extra $250,000 when he was about to not get in. Okay? Decisions happen all the time like that, where you make a decision that changed your life. When's the time that's happened to you? Right? Magical things happen. Now, let's take another example here of a magical, mystical story, and you guys ignore stuff like this. This is like the coolest stuff ever. What's the best thing you could possibly do after something amazing happens to you in your life? Let me tell you what the best thing you could possibly do is. Make a video, man, and pop it up and tell people to buy something. Make a video, man, and put it up and tell people to take some action. Put a video up with your link on it and say, I just made this video, I just earned my first $1,000 commission. I wanted to talk to you about how pumped and excited I am because I've been online for years and I've never earned a $1,000 commission. I earned my first $1,000 commission. Do you know I'd never earned a $1,000 affiliate commission before we started Empower Network? I'd never had stuff I could sell and earn $1,000 from. You do. Right? You've got products you can sell and earn $1,000 from. Right? Make a video when you have an amazing experience. Right? I had somebody email me the other day. They said, Dave, I did this strategy Ray and Fernie were doing. I put up some PPP people ads in, and I had to sign up in 5 minutes. Right? And I was like, great, you should do. And they said, why? I said, pull out a camera and talk about that and put up the amazing story that just happened to you. Imagine a time when you were in the right place at the right time in your life, when the universe converged on you to put you in a situation to where magic started to occur, to where you had a breakthrough, to where maybe you made a tiny decision at the time, but the ripples from that decision affected and impacted and blossomed and created this mystical power over your life for maybe the next 10 or 20 years. It happened to me when I decided to talk to my wife. It could be happening to you right now. In fact, right now might be one of those moments. You never know how far the ripples of your decisions go. You never know how far the ripples of your decisions go. You never know how far the ripples of your decisions go. A few years back, I had a friend. His name was Tom, and he lived in the back of a store in Fairbanks, Alaska. He was the manager of a store. They had carved out a refrigerator, and he lived in a refrigerator in the back of the store. I used to go hang out. We used to play video games after we were doing business opportunity presentations. He was one of these guys that was hyper intelligent, but depressed all the time, like Winnie the Pooh, or like Eeyore or something, right? But he was like super smart, super intelligent, and had this super internal charismatic personality, but was kind of negative about everything in his life. But he said, Dave, I just ran into this new kind of training. You got to hear this stuff. So I went over to his house, and he popped this audio CD in from this guy named Chris Howard. It was one of the most fascinating stuff that I've ever heard. So I took this audio and I sent it to my brother Will, right? Well, my brother Will heard this audio. He called me up and said, Dave, this is some of the most fascinating stuff I've ever heard, right? And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, I'm going to study this. Now, my brother started studying hypnosis, and now he's a clinical hypnotherapist. So my buddy Tom, who lives in the back of the store, introduced me to an audio that I sent to my brother that now has made my brother decide to be a clinical hypnotherapist. He's now replaced his job income, and he's doing hypnosis full-time, right, out there in northern Utah. People get rid of allergies and stuff through hypnosis, right? Me, in a random circumstances, changed my brother, but it also changed my life and changed my ability to sell. Now, here's an interesting thing. I remember listening to that audio. I said, one day I want to meet that guy. Well, just recently, I decided to go out and do an event over in Singapore. Well, while I was in Singapore, I started chit-chatting with this guy, Chris, on Facebook. And I said, yeah, I'm going to Singapore. He says, Singapore? He says, I live in Bali. It's an hour away. I said, come down, we'll fly you down. So then years later, I'm in a situation in Singapore where I get to meet the guy that I ran into randomly that one night, late at night, in the refrigerator in the back of a store. And we start chit-chatting about hypnosis and stuff like this and all this cool stuff. And he gets up just for me, without even charging us, and hypnotizes the crowd into taking some action at our event. Random circumstances, magical experiences where you make a decision that changes your life. What's something that's happened to you? I mean, I could go on for 8 years telling you weird stories of stuff that's happened to me because I focus on it, because it happens all the time. In fact, today I'm going to have something magical happen to me. I just know it. Why? Because, I mean, look at all the evidence, right? Look at all the evidence in the past of all this amazing stuff that's happened. See, when you start looking for the evidence of how amazing your life is, your mind starts reproducing amazing. It goes into overdrive to create amazing. It goes into overdrive to create miracles. It goes into overdrive to create mystical experiences. It goes into overdrive to create magic. It goes into overdrive to recreate what you experience because it's operating, focusing on what you're telling it to focus on, which in this case is magic. Doesn't even need if you don't believe in magic, you know, we got, and you don't even have to call it magic. You can call it the mysterious power of the universe. So here's what I want to encourage you to do if you're watching this video. I want you to listen to that audio from last night. I want you to listen to the 5 keys of mysterious selling, of mystical selling power. If you log into the Empower Network, it'll automatically play when you go in. I want you to listen to that audio and follow the assignment in that audio. I want you to make a list of 5 amazing experiences that happened to you and start paying attention and remembering, okay, how it felt to be in that experience. I'm actually going to walk you through an exercise right now. So here's what I want you to do. You got a pen, you got a piece of paper? If not, pause the video. Okay, I'm assuming you have a pen and a piece of paper. Maybe you open up a little window on the side, you can walk through the thing. What I want you to do real quick is I want you to just remember one time when you were in the right place at the right time, you made a decision that altered the course of your life for the positive, okay? Or maybe you were in the right place at the right time, the universe converged upon you, and maybe you were involved in an opportunity, you were in the right place at the right time, that opportunity to change your life, right? Maybe you were just in the right business, in the right niche, at the right time, with the right group of people, with the right information, and change your life. I want you to remember a time that happened to you. It's happened to me a lot, okay? Remember a time something like that happened to you. Okay, now here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is I want to walk you through remembering and telling that story, very briefly. So let's say you had an experience where you're in the right place at the right time, okay? I remember a time when I was in the right place at the right time back in 2009. I ran into a video at the right place at the right time in my life when I was ready to listen. And I saw a video and I decided to take action on what the guy told me to do in the video. I clicked a link and opened to a website and I just decided to buy right on the spot, right? Had I not done that 3 years ago, Empower Network would not exist. Why? Because I would have kept doing the same dumb bullshit, not getting any results, right? But because I made that decision, 3 months later I had my first $30,000 month. Because I decided, it was like everything in my life around me transformed. I learned how to attract people to me, into my business. I learned how to get people running to me with their credit cards. I learned how to get people coming up to me and saying, David, I'm ready to buy. I learned how to sell stuff automatically without picking up the phone. I learned how to put down the phone and pick up the paychecks. I learned how to not dread going to the bank anymore. And in fact, I started going to the bank, and the bank teller started looking at me like I was a drug dealer because I was in, you know, tie-dye hippie clothes and had crazy hair, and I looked a little crazy, and they'd look at me and they'd look at the bank account, they'd look at me and they'd look at the bank account and they'd say, what the fuck do you do? Right? I started having amazing things happen to me in my life all the time. It all stemmed from that one decision. Everything stemmed from that one decision, that time. So what I want you to do is I want you to step back in that time for a moment. Step back into the time, and I want you can close your eyes if you want. Here, I'll close my eyes so you feel a little bit more comfortable. Maybe look around, make sure nobody's looking at you, or maybe pretend you're sleeping, right? But close your eyes just for a second so you can remember. You can see sometimes a little bit better when you close your eyes. I want you to remember what that moment felt like in your life when you had that amazing thing. I remember being in front of my computer. I remember leaning in, and I remember thinking, oh snap, I'm in. Right? I remember looking at this and I say, is this for real? I'm going to be rich. Right? I remember that feeling of saying those things, right? But what I want you to do is I want you to be in that environment just for a second. Just be in your body in that environment. Just looking through your eyes at that moment when that amazing thing happened to you. At that moment where maybe it didn't feel amazing then, but you made a decision and it changed the entire course of your life. You're in the right place at the right time. Now, I've been in that experience before. I remember that feeling. I remember sitting there in my life, and I did not know at that moment the amazing things that would happen to me from that decision, but I decided anyways. I made a decision anyways. I made a decision to not just get in to go for it. I made a decision to not just get in to get all in. I made a decision that I was going to take massive action. I made a decision that I was going to have some victory in my life. I made a decision that I was going to have a breakthrough, and I remember being there, in that decision then. I remember where I was, in a little office in my parents' house up in Fairbanks, Alaska. I just moved out of the van. I was trying to build a business in the van by calling leads off Craigslist, and I got up to Alaska, and I was frustrated, and I was mad because of something that had happened the day before. And I remember sitting there in front of the computer. I had clothes that I hadn't washed in a couple of days. It was a blue tie-dye shirt that I bought at a fair up in Fairbanks, Alaska. I think I was 16 years old when I bought the shirt. You know, I was 26 then. Things don't change. I was 28 or something, 28, I guess it was. I remember being there, and I remember seeing this guy that I thought was rich, who actually wasn't, but I thought he was rich. And I remember seeing that guy, and I said, if this dumb, stupid idiot can get rich online, I'm going to be famous and rich. And I am. But I remember what it felt like. Now I look back at the things that had to happen. Let me make sure this is still on for that to happen. It's ridiculous. And so is my life. So go ahead and take action. Go ahead and take action. Go ahead and do exactly what I said in this video, which is if you're not in Power Network, of course, get it. If you're in, I want you to listen to that audio, follow the assignments in the audio. I want you to actually make a video of a transformational experience, but you got to learn the other 5 keys. The other 5 keys, sorry folks, too dangerous. They're reserved for Empower Network members only. You actually got to be an Empower